Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing Season 22. Now, I'm not going to be ranking Season 22, that will be a different list, but I am going to talk about the 6 stories in Season 22. Season 22 is an interesting one for me because it's the only season I didn't own any stories from before getting the box set. The only DVD of Colin's era I owned was Twin Dilemma, which is Season 21, and then, of course, I own the Season 23 box set already. But I didn't own any of Season 22. Now, I had seen half of Season 22 before. I had seen Two Doctors, my mind is blanking, Revelation of the Daleks, and Vengeance on Varos before. But I hadn't seen them in a considerable amount of time since I didn't own them, and I'd never seen the other 3. So I was seeing 3 stories for the first time, and 3 stories that I hadn't seen for a considerable amount of time, especially Revelations. I hadn't seen that in well over a decade. So it was an interesting experience because Season 22 is very different than Season 23. I mean, even tonally it's very different. It does have that violence going on in it, which I actually enjoy. I can say I find Season 22 very underrated. I think it's a much stronger season than Season 23, which I think is one of the weakest, if not the weakest season in Classic. Probably, actually, yeah, if I was ranking it, I'd probably rank it at the bottom. I'm not sure. I'd have to think on that. But I think Season 22 is much stronger, and part of that's helped by the darker elements of it. I like Attack of the Cybermen. It was my first time watching it. I liked it. I had some nitpicks with it, which I mentioned in the story. The very emotional Cybermen that's kind of rampant during the 80s, and well, 70s and 80s to be honest. The little ice women creatures running around, I never liked them a lot. The fact that I wish some of the Cybermen that had been asleep in the tombs had been the Mondasian Cybermen from like Tomb of the Cybermen. That would have been really cool. But I did enjoy the story. I liked having Lytton back. The scene with him getting his hands crushed is pretty cool. Not as graphic as I'd always pictured, but for what it is, it's pretty cool. Seeing someone in the process of being converted is really neat. Like seeing Lytton trying to maintain his humanity at the end, that's pretty cool. And then seeing the people who were only partially converted, that was pretty neat. I liked Attack of the Cybermen a lot. It's always one I'd heard divided opinions on. Some people don't like it, some people do like it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. It was nice to see Vengeance again. Oddly enough, I'd always touted Vengeance as my favorite Colin story, and I'm not sure if that's still true. My watch through of it, I still enjoyed it. I didn't like it quite as much as I did before. It's still really good. I talked about in my review of it. I love the cliffhanger to episode 1. It's phenomenal. It's dark. That look on Colin's face when it just looks like he's dead on the ground. I like the way they superimpose that desert effect on the background where you can still see the hallway walls behind it. That's pretty impressive for 80s Doctor Who. It has the Perry turning into a bird thing. It's kind of dumb, but and it has those go-karts in it that I always hate. And I don't know what it is with 80s Who in those. But it's some good casting. Syl is a phenomenal character. He's easily one of the best antagonists to come out of 80s Doctor Who. And I really like him. A really good performance. So yeah, I like Vengeance, but it wasn't quite as good as I remembered it on this watch through. I may feel differently after the next watch through. And I love how it kind of predicts reality TV and shows like Big Brother. That's pretty impressive too, considering this came out in like 1985. Mark of the Rani, which I just finished yesterday or the day before, was really good. This could be my favorite performance with Colin as the Doctor. I just did my review on it recently. I really like his performance in this. That smile he puts on his face right before he's about to sabotage the Rani's TARDIS could be my favorite Sixth Doctor moment. Because that is that little 5-year-old boy smile of, I'm going to break something that's not mine. I absolutely love that. And then when he gets the Master's weapon and he's holding the Master and the Rani at gunpoint, he's so deadly serious there. Like, it's more like Eccleston or Capaldi where you don't know. This is one of those rare times where you're like, yeah, the Doctor might actually do it. That's pretty cool. And the location work is phenomenal. There's so much location work, too, for Mark of the Rani. And it's really good. I really enjoy the location work. I enjoy The main cast and most of the guest cast, they all do a good job. Kato Mara is just phenomenal as the Rani in both stories. It's interesting seeing the Rani and the Master going off each other when you can tell they don't really like each other. She especially doesn't like him. And the incidental music's fantastic. I really enjoy the incidental music in this story a lot. The Two Doctors is really good. It's a little too long, but it's really good. It has Troughton back in it. It's always going to get points for having Troughton back. I love the Second Doctor. I really enjoy having him back in this. I love the opening few minutes of this where you almost start to get into the mind frame of this is a Second Doctor story. It's nice having Frasier back. This is the first time we've really had Frasier back, except for that cameo in Five Doctors. We've really had him back for a story since the War Games. I like him and 2 together. I really like him and 6 together. They get along really well. So it's nice having him back. I really enjoy those first few minutes. I love the Sontaran theme in this. That could be the best incidental music in all of classic Doctor Who. That Sontaran theme is just, I love it. Dum, 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 I love that. That just gets in my head. I hear that sometimes when I'm driving. I love that theme. And I love that iconic shot right when they come on board and you just see the arm with the weapon wave up at the Second Doctor and he's just like, it's such an iconic shot to me. I love that shot. And the fact that the Second Doctor and the Sixth Doctor don't get along. The Second Doctor just doesn't get along with other Doctors. I enjoy that. It's overly long. Most of the location work in Spain doesn't really do much for me, especially at the Hacienda. I don't care. I really wish they'd gone to New Orleans. I'm only a few hours away from New Orleans. I've been to New Orleans several times. It's a phenomenal city. And I really wish they could have filmed there. The Hacienda stuff doesn't appeal to me. Now, the scenes, I think in part 3, when they are running around the town, is pretty cool. I like the town. Those scenes look really good. That location work I like. The whole thing with the Doctor turning into the angiogram, I don't really care for that. I don't like that at all. And then the one guy who likes collecting the bugs and he's like the head waiter of the restaurant or whatever. I don't like him. If there's anything that pulls the story down, it's him. Nothing against the actor, but he's treated so campy, and his death scene is way too long and way too silly, and it really pulls me out of the story. But still a good effort. Not the best of the season, but it definitely gets points for having Troughton and Jamie in it. Then there's Timelash, which is probably the weakest of the season, definitely from a story standpoint. This was my first time watching Timelash, and I did watch it with the updated effects because I wanted my first experience with it to be as good as possible, and I am well aware of the notorious reputation it has for its bad effects. Now, I have watched a video comparing the new effects to the old effects, so I've seen the old effects, and they're... Woo. The new effects help. They do. Especially the scene when the Doctor's in the time vortex thing, and he's surrounded by the little crystals. It looks a lot better with the updated effects, but it goes on too long. Like, I was sitting here going, yeah, that effect looks much better. But he's in there so long, I'm like, okay, getting bored with this, get him out of there. But the effect looks a lot better. I like the actual Timelash effect where it looks a lot like a CGI version of Tom Baker's intro titles. It's a neat little Easter egg there. I enjoy that. A nice little nod to Classic Who, or, other Classic Who. I like that. The Borat makeup looks phenomenal. I think most of us at least have to give it that. The makeup for the Borat looks highly impressive. It's even by classic Doctor Who standards especially, but I'll stack that up with a lot of the effects from modern Who either, especially early modern Who. That is some really good makeup. I think we all have to at least give it that. And it has Paul Darrow in it. Now, I'm saying that like I'm some British person who has this working familiarity with Paul Darrow. Like, look, it's Paul Darrow. I really don't. A year ago, I wouldn't have known who Paul Darrow was. But I do know he's very famous for being on Blake 7. And I did enjoy watching him in this. I heard them talking about it behind the sofa and the making of how he's basically playing, Sir Laurence Olivier, doing Richard III or something like that. And I like that. It's so hammy. It's like him and Colin are trying to out-ham each other. Love that. Although I also hear it's Paul Darrow's way of getting back at Colin for when Colin was on an episode of Blake 7. But still, I like Paul Darrow in this. While the story is easily the weakest, it has redeeming factor. It's certainly watchable. It is certainly watchable. It's definitely not the worst Colin Baker story, in my opinion. And then we finish up with Revelations of the Daleks, which is good. All of the Dalek stories in the 80s are good, and this one is really good. Very dark, very gruesome. The scene when the glass Dalek and the woman's father is half changed. That's a wonderful scene. Well written, well acted, well directed. It's a great scene. It has a couple weak points, like the statue falling on the Doctor, which is the cliffhanger for part 1. The statue doesn't really, or the column with his face on it, whatever that's supposed to be, doesn't look very convincing at all. And the fact it didn't crush him is kind of weird. The guy who runs the funeral parlor place, the same actor who plays in Voyage of the Damned, it seems unnecessary and doesn't need to be there. His nurse that's infatuated with him definitely doesn't need to be there. You could have cut them out, but Davros is great in this. When Terry Malloy shows up, it's great. And I like the assassin they hire. The guy playing the assassin and his sidekick are both really good. They both do a phenomenal job. I like the fact they work by their own code. I think that's really cool. And it's cool to see, what is her name? Ellen Braun? She's the same one I know who did that cameo in City of Death. She's really good in this as well. I enjoy her as well. I like Revelation of the Daleks. It's where we really first start really seeing that Dalek Civil War we'd see more in Remembrance. So, yeah, it's a good season. Like I said, I don't know if there's any bad stories in it. Timelash is easily the weakest. And it might be edging into bad, but it's still perfectly watchable. I mean, I'd rather watch it than The Leisure Hive. Certainly I'd rather watch it than Power of Kroll. I'd rather watch it than Claws of Axos. I'd rather watch it... Well, I don't know about the Dominators, because Dominators has Troughton. But it's right there on that Dominators level. But it's watchable. Much like the Dominator, it's watchable. I'm usually good if something's watchable. Most of Classic Who is watchable. There's very few stories of Classic Who, that I'm just like, I can't watch that again. Like, the Gunfighters or something. I'd rather just read the Target novel of the Gunfighters. It's better. And it doesn't have that stupid song in it. But, no, it has it printed in it like once, but I can handle that. So, yeah, Season 22 I really liked. I do prefer the Doctor and Perry's relationship a little more in Season 23, where they get along a little better. The brief stories, the stories we have together, they do get along a little better. But I much prefer the actual stories in Season 22 better. Colin's acting is sometimes a little over the top. But I really like, say, in Mark of the Rani, where he really seems to center in on it, and it's not quite so overblown. I really like it. It's going to be my favorite performance for him as the Doctor is in the Mark of the Rani. It's really, really good. So I like Season 22. It's a very underrated season. So much of 80s Doctor Who is underrated. Season 26 is underrated by a lot of people. Season 25 is underrated. Season 24 is vastly underrated. Season 24 is phenomenal. And Season 22, I've decided, is also underrated. Really, the only one in those last few seasons I would say isn't that great is Season 23. And I still really, really like The Mysterious Planet and Terror of the Vervoids. I need to rewatch Ultimate Foe, to be honest, and I don't like Mind Warped much, despite having Silback and Brian Blessed, who are both amazing. I don't really get into that episode. I don't like what it does with Perry. I'm so glad Ultimate Foe retconned that. So yeah, Season 22. I like it. Very underrated. I enjoy the darkness in it. Kind of a throwback to the Hinchcliffe era. Not as good as the Hinchcliffe era, but it kind of has some of those dark vibes to it I like. I want to know what you think of Season 22, so comment down below and let me know. Other things to do, click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon if you like what I do and would like to support what I do. There is a link to that down in the description below as well. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me down there. And I also have a link to my Amazon wish list down there as well if you want to check that out. I update that regularly. I want to give a shout out to two of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane and the Fifth Doctor. I appreciate their continued support, and as I do the support of all of my patrons. Most importantly though, thank you for watching.